I'm talking today to UK landscape architect Emily Ross. Hi Emily, thank you so much for letting me interview you for Askimo TV's International Library of Interviews with Experts.
Hi Joanne, it's good to speak to you today.
Lovely to be talking to you too, Emily. Emily, today we're going to be talking about edible landscapes. So let's start off with, what are edible landscapes?
Okay, edible landscapes are public spaces or gardens or any kind of outdoor space which incorporate plants that you can eat. So not just having flowers and normal trees, but things that you can actually grow and then eat. So this covers quite a large range of plants actually. There's obviously herbs, there's things that you can put in a salad, trees, you could have fruit trees or nut trees as well. Soft fruit, vegetables obviously are an obvious one, but also edible flowers as well, growing flowers that you can then eat. That's yeah. So an edible landscape might have some or all of these in. I mean, if in your back garden, for example, if it was small, you might just have a fruit tree or a fruit bush, and then you're making your garden more edible. The good thing about edible landscapes is they're healthy, obviously. Eating more fruit and vegetables is really good for us. You can have it on your doorstep, just open the door, your back door, and then you've got some nice produce to pick and eat. You can save money as well, obviously. The cost of some things in the supermarket are very expensive, so you can save money that way. And you know where the food has come from and how it's been grown, so it hasn't been shipped across the world and it hasn't had lots of chemicals on that you're not sure about, so you can choose how to grow it yourself. Edible landscapes, yeah, as I mentioned, you can grow them on any scale really, in a small back garden or a community garden or perhaps a school or a public space even. And even if you've got a very small space like a balcony, you could still have a pot with some herbs on it or anything. Or vertical walls are becoming very popular now, growing things vertically like herbs and fruit, and so that's always good if you're limited with space.
Emily, at each landscape, how are you able to step in and help people in this area?
Okay, well, I'm a landscape architect, so I'm used to designing all kinds of outdoor spaces really. So I can advise on the layout of the space, whether it's a garden or a public space. So come up with a design for that. Look at the existing conditions, like the soil and what way the site is facing, so if it's north or south facing, and how much sun and shade it gets. And yeah, just working with the client really, finding out what their budget is, what they want to get from the garden. So I can help them from just some initial ideas to designing the full thing and helping them to get it built really. Any involvement that they want.
How do I know what edible foods or plants I can grow in my garden?
Okay, yeah, you do need to be careful because obviously you can't eat every plant. Some things are poisonous, so you need to do a bit of research. Obviously you know what you buy at the supermarket in terms of fruit and vegetables, so you'll know about those, but perhaps more exotic ones, it's good to read up in specialist books. There are some about edible gardening, and then there's also more general ones about, say, growing fruit or growing vegetables. There's also obviously a lot of information on websites which you can look at. Or you might want to contact a local landscape architect or a gardener to get some advice from them. They'll probably give you a free consultation.
Why should I fertilize, and what should I specifically use when gardening edible foods?
Fertilizing is important to give the plants the best start that they can have really, but it depends on the species quite a lot. like some plants are very hungry and need a lot of nutrients. But you can do this by putting compost around them. That's rather than some chemical fertilizer. There's lots of organic ways that you can do it. So, for example, rhubarb likes lots of nutrients, so you'd want to give that lots of compost and manure and things. But other things, because of where they come from originally, are quite happy in poor soil, really. They thrive on that, like Mediterranean herbs like sage, rosemary and thyme, so they'll cope with pretty much anything. Then tomatoes, for example, they like lots of feeding as well, so yeah, they're another hungry one. So it depends what you want to grow, really. And there's loads of different.
What should home gardeners know or consider when thinking about planting vegetables and then herbs?
Okay, well, vegetables probably can take up more space generally. So you need to consider what size of garden that you have. For both things though, the soil is a really important thing, as I mentioned before. Whether it's sandy or clay, acid or alkali. And also the site you're planting in, is it flat or sloping? I think a really important thing is what do I actually want to eat in my garden? It's no good growing lots of things that you're never going to eat. It's think about what you buy from the supermarket and what you'd like to eat more of, and then plant those things, really. Vegetables, there's things that you can almost plant and eat all year round, so you need to think about, do I want to just have things at certain times of the year or all year? And in terms of vegetables, probably the season when a lot of things start going is the spring, really. So at that time of year you can start sowing seed, or in the garden centre you can buy like little plug plants, so they're another good way to do it. Herbs, some herbs you can grow all through the year, which is quite good. You can even put them on your kitchen windowsill. And you can buy those from more established plants. So if you're not an experienced gardener, they're quite a good way to start, really.
What role does light play in knowing where to plant your vegetables or your herbs?
Light is quite important, actually, because yeah, a lot of plants a lot of vegetables do tend to like more light, actually. There's some that will grow in shade, but if you try and grow them in a very shady place in your garden, you might find that they get very tall and spindly because they're desperately trying to get to the light. So I've experienced this in my own garden, which is north facing, and I'm always trying to grow things, and then they don't succeed very well because they're not liking the conditions, and I try and force them that they don't really like it. So yeah, you'll realise sometimes by trial and error as to what grows best. But yeah, some things will grow in shade as well. So.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you, Joanne. It was good to talk to you too.